Babylonia, 1,500 years ago, give or take a few. Imagine we're on the banks of the Euphrates River with our Talmudic ancestors as they sit in a Beit Midrash, a house of study, hiding from the blistering hot Babylonian sun. On this particular day, they're studying Mishnat Horayot, a pretty technical tractate on erroneous decisions made by leaders of the Jewish people. It happens out there, it happens, I'm just saying. The Beit Midrash hums with debates over the varying implications of whether leaders acted b'mezid, intentionally, or bishgaga, unintentionally. They home in on a case raised in this week's Parsha, Vayikra, when all the congregation of Israel errs, and the matter is hidden in the eyes of the community. Kol adat Yisrael yishku v'ne'elam devar me'enei hakahal. Once the error becomes known, the Parsha continues, the community, hakahal, needs to sacrifice a bull as a sin offering and bring it before the tent in the camp where God and the people used to meet. The rabbis in this Babylonian Beit Midrash figure that all the congregation Israel, Kol Adat Yisrael, refers to the leaders, while the community, Kahal, refers to the 12 tribes of all the people Israel. So, they wonder, what could be a case where all the leadership of Israel errs, and the matter is hidden in the eyes of the people, and thus leading the people to make a sacrifice on account of their leaders' poor decision-making? The assembled rabbis in this Beit Midrash come up with a few different hypothetical cases. But there's one real-life case that doesn't come up in all their back and forth in all of their debates. It's because it hasn't happened yet. But it's going to happen right in their backyard, and it's going to involve leadership acting bishgaga, unintentionally, erroneously. 1,500 years later. But it's not quite 2026. It's April 21st, 2003, the first weeks of the Iraq War, and US-led coalition forces have just set up Camp Alpha. Camp Alpha is one of many coalition military bases popping up all over Iraq. But there's something that sets this base apart. It's largely situated within the ancient city of Babylon. Or, more specifically, Camp Alpha sits on top of the ancient city of Babylon, just a couple of hours' drive away from where the Beit Midrash would have been. Camp Alpha's heavy equipment destroyed countless antiquities beneath the earth, and the vibrations of nearby helicopters inflicted severe damage on ancient sacred walls. This is better than other camps in Iraq. It's a historical place, troops would say. You might as well get some historical value out of it. The US military eventually attributed Camp Alpha's location to a flawed decision-making process. You don't say. The military leadership during the invasion thought they were considering the right factors. As a later Army Corps of Engineers report would put it, inadequate consideration of specific siting criteria that may have played a role in this failure include a general awareness of religious and historical sites. Or, to put it another way, consideration of specific siting criteria was done acting bishgaga, unintentionally, erroneously. Once the mistake of Camp Alpha became recognized in military policy circles, or as this week's Parsha would put it, Noda ha'chatat, the error became known, the Department of Defense supported programs designed to prevent US personnel from destroying cultural heritage, alongside programs to minimize, though of course not totally eradicate, civilian harm. One program put these playing cards that I have with me right here, of Iraqi and Afghan cultural heritage on them, I'm happy to show them to people afterwards. They really do have all sorts of cultural heritage sites on them. They put these in the packs of about 40,000 troops that were deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan to help ensure that they wouldn't unintentionally destroy cultural heritage while on deployment. So I got this set of playing cards from my own wandering path to becoming a rabbi, which took me from studying Mesopotamian archaeology in college, yes, the archaeology of Babylonia and Babylon, to working with US military personnel on cultural heritage protection measures. And I want to right now focus on one group of these people that I worked with who have been on my mind a lot recently, especially in the last few weeks. At the end of the Obama administration, I began to collaborate with the team at the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, who worked on no-strike lists for civilian infrastructure. Their job was to ensure that US airstrikes wouldn't unintentionally hit sites such as schools, hospitals, clean water sources, and cultural heritage sites. When I eventually left the defense world to pursue rabbinical school, I would periodically think of those people at the DIA whom I used to work with. These were people who committed their lives painstakingly to painstakingly slow change from the inside the massive bureaucracy that is the Department of Defense. Their work, while little noticed, saved countless innocent lives, even as the forever war continued to kill countless more. Recognizing finally the importance of teams like this one that I used to collaborate with at the DIA, the Biden administration's Department of Defense announced the creation of a Civilian Protection Center of Excellence to coordinate civilian protection efforts. In the second Trump administration, these efforts have been absolutely gutted. 3 weeks ago, a missile hit the CRRI Tayyebe Girls Elementary School in Minab, Iran. 175 young students and staff were reportedly killed. An open source analysis by the independent investigative collective Bellingcat identified the projectile that hit the school as a Tomahawk missile. Iran and Israel, who are the other combatants here, do not have Tomahawk missiles. Only the US has Tomahawk missiles, thereby confirming US responsibility for the attack. Former personnel associated with the gutted civilian protection efforts inside the Defense Department have said that their work, quote, could have made a difference. Bringing death and destruction to Iran in the first place and its violent reverberations in Israel and across the Middle East is, of course, intentional. The Trump administration's policies that remove safeguards and expertise to prevent unintentional harm is intentional. The carelessness is intentional. As much as I want to call out the Trump administration, and trust me, I will, shame on the Trump administration for putting the US military in a position where an accident like this could occur, and as much as I will say that, this week's Parsha compels us to go further. If all the congregation of Israel errs, and the matter is hidden in the eyes of the community, HaKahal, so that they do anything that God had commanded shall not be done, and they do wrong, once the error becomes known, the community, HaKahal, shall sacrifice a bull from the herd for the error and bring it to the tent of meeting. The rabbinic consensus, already reflected in the Mishnah and the Talmud, understands this passage as meaning that if an erroneous decision by leaders made bishgaga, unintentionally, in turn causes the people Israel to err bishgaga, unintentionally, then it is the responsibility of the people and not the leaders to offer a sacrifice on account of the error. The people, not the leaders, are responsible for the careless errors of the leadership. Now, what if we applied this framework not just to the political community of the Jewish people, but to the United States of America. Given that our tax dollars are paying for this war, with the Pentagon requesting another $200 billion with a B more, we, sitting here in this room right now, unwittingly make possible any US missile or airstrike that kills innocent people. Unlike the Trump administration, we didn't make decisions leading to such recklessness, but we now see the consequences of our leaders' actions, even as they can't or just won't. And they're doing this with our tax dollars in our name. Nod'a ha'chatat. The error has now become known. The Trump administration so often causes harm b'mezid, intentionally. But the harm it causes bishgaga, unintentionally, can be just as, if not more, harmful. In fact, the Mishnah teaches that the people must sacrifice a goat when they err unintentionally, but their leaders err b'mezid, intentionally. A goat sacrifice is relatively less serious in the sacrificial system than a bull, which is required for cases where everyone has erred bishgaga, unintentionally. Leviticus deposits a heightened responsibility for our leaders' carelessness in our laps. Its arcane and, yes, sometimes off-putting laws hold us, the people, accountable for holding our leaders accountable for their carelessness. And how much carelessness there has been. From Minab, Iran, to Minneapolis, from Baghdad to Babylon before that too. When there are no adults in our nation's halls of power, we have to be the adults in the room to be accountable for our nation. At one point in our history, being accountable meant sacrificing a bull. You went to the temple, you followed the rules of Leviticus, you were good. But sacrificing a bull is no longer an option. We don't have a temple. How do we find a new sacrificial bull? It's now on us to find this new bull, and it's on us to find new ways to hold our leaders accountable for their carelessness. Source of all life, guide our leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts, but keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence and authority to speak truth and act for justice. Shabbat shalom.